Dzień dobry Państwu. Jest mi bardzo miło móc przedstawić Państwu czworo z moich gości, naszych gości. Przede wszystkim Maraj Strack z niemieckiego stowarzyszenia DDIM. Please, Maraj. Tony Evansa z brytyjskiego stowarzyszenia Institute of Interim Management. Tony. Please take a seat. Francisco Paez z hiszpańskiego stowarzyszenia AIME i Fabio Montefiori z włoskiego stowarzyszenia Leading Network. Fabio, please take a seat. Będziemy mówić po angielsku. We'll be talking in English. I don't think so, unless there is questions later. So I have a couple of questions for you. And the first question, of course, is when we were preparing for this, I sent you the questions that I was going to ask. That was a few weeks ago. And at that time, nobody, of course, even anticipated the situation in which we are in today. So obviously, it's too early to assess the impact this situation may have on further developments of the interim management market. But even before the Iran war, we already had a lot of very disturbing developments on the international market, which of course influenced the national markets. And my first question, therefore, is how have these developments impacted your internal national market? What are the challenges, economic challenges in your country as far as interim management is concerned? Maybe we can start with Maraj.
Okay, Stan, you're probably right. And looking back the last 5 years, I probably don't have to tell you anything new. The challenges are quite similar in all of our countries, starting with the COVID crisis and then, well, new wars and energy prices rising. But therefore, I'd like to concentrate on what is affecting the German market specifically. Our economy is heavily relying on export. And of course, with all these new disturbances from, let's say, the Trump government and these tax, well, I'd rather say bullshit.
Tariffs?
Well, yes, the tariffs that are not reliable and that are changing every day. So we are affected maybe a bit more. And our biggest industry has to realign. That's the automotive industry. During the last years, we have seen shifts from, well, the conventional cars to e-mobility. And our industry even, well, committed to get completely rid of, burning fuels, more than the European legislation wanted it to do. This was probably not a very wise decision. And our former government even tried to get rid of fossil-fueled heating systems for housing. And so we've got big shifts in our most important industries, where most of our jobs rely on. And we can see this year, especially, this is arriving in the market. Our most important industry for interim managers has been, over all years, the automotive industry. And during the last year, we had seen shift from about nearly 12% down to below 8%, the interim management assignments in Germany, and that indicates the major shift in our industry. And well, most of our colleagues are trying to figure out where to land their next assignment. So it's really a huge shift. Although it didn't affect the market overall that much, the last year was challenging, but most of my colleagues look very optimistic into the new world.
So, like the survey said, pessimists are rising.
No. Well, the funny thing is, if you ask managers, is there an increasing pressure on daily rates? Yes, there is increasing pressure on daily rates. But the daily rates hold strong since a couple of years. And your colleague made a very important point. Inflation rates are not regarded. And this is the bad news. The daily rates haven't been rising, but they hold strong. And this is good news. So the pressure is felt, but it's not supported by the figures. But what went down is utilization rate, quite a lot during the last year. And for this year, managers are optimistic. They even want to sell more days than ever. We always ask, how many days do you want to sell? And we measure utilization rate not towards 200, 220 days whatsoever, but we ask each manager, how many days do you want to sell? Because we are entrepreneurs. We decide whether we want to work 100 days a year, or some even want to sell 280, what I think is crazy in our jobs. So they want to sell more than ever before. And this is what my adult kids would call a delusional. Don't know whether this word exists in your language.
Thank you. Well, Germany is the biggest economy in Europe, so everything that happens there certainly impacts all the other countries. Now, together with Germany, Britain is the second or one of the two largest markets in interim management in Europe and probably worldwide as well. So I was wondering, how does this situation relate to what Marai just said in your country, Tony?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much indeed for having us here. The UK situation, if we go and look at the context, is slightly different to that described by Marai. If we go back to the COVID situation, the UK's economy dropped by something like 30%. So this is ridiculously big compared to a recession, for example. Having made the decision to leave the EU, there's been a lot of debate about the economic impact of leaving the EU, but it's reckoned to be the equivalent of inflicting, let's call it a normal recession, so maybe 4 or 5 percentage points on GDP. These two things together have caused a number of issues. I'm sure all of Europe was influenced in a problematic way because of the way that supply chains worldwide became a real issue. And the UK, in terms of its manufacturing capacity, has a lot of long, thin supply chains, and they were badly disrupted. The UK economy, ever since COVID finished, has made really quite a sluggish recovery. And that continues. So in 2025, the economy grew marginally by about 1.3%. This is not exciting. In addition, in the UK, particularly relevant to interims, is successive governments have managed to develop a punitive tax system which is complicated to negotiate effectively to remove the fear of being attacked by the tax authorities on the way that you tax yourself. It's complicated, it's a silliness in many respects, but the net effect is it makes it difficult for interims to operate in a particular way. The way that clients see that is it's a risk. So we've got a sluggish economy. Nobody at this stage can see how that is going to change because of the impact of international issues, not least energy. And The problem then is that all the different types of company start to see making a significant change is a risk. It's a bigger risk than if the economy was going well and they could see themselves a pathway to growth, whatever. So all of that means that from an interim point of view, they are perceived as a risk. If you want somebody to come into your organisation and take it through some form of significant change, and we've seen that change is the biggest thing we do, and this is supported by the UK Institute's annual survey, which has been running for about, I think, 16 years now. And for a good number of those years, over 90% of all the assignments done by the respondents to that survey are involving some form of significant change. So that's what we do. It's what we've been doing for a long time. And as we do that, we are that risk, and people are less likely to want to take on that risk. Now, I think that's bad thinking, because we are the way to deal with that risk of change. Doing nothing anymore is risky. It's a serious risk, and I don't think we're seeing a significant enough understanding of that yet, certainly in the UK market. You can't hold on anymore, and you've got to do something. And that something needs to be guided very effectively. And where do you find the experience to do that? Well, you find it in Poland, in this room. You are the people who are going to direct, in large measure, the way this economy will continue to grow. And it's the same in each country. There was a comment earlier from Roman about the you're not a cost, you're an investment. I go to market because I say I am a return on investment. I want you, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client, to think of me as a capex, not a revenue spend. I will return to you 10 times my cost in year one. Now, if I came to you as a member of your team, permanently employed, and said, I've got a capex to sign, it'll give us 10 times the payment back in year one, would you sign it, please? There isn't any executive anywhere in the world that's not going to sign that capex. I'll stop.
Thank you very much. Well, as you have seen from the European survey, there seems to be an important difference in results, survey results, between what was called the northern and the southern countries. In the panel, we have two representatives of what could be called the northern countries and two representatives of the southern countries, although this notion is a bit artificial, I think, because we are talking of the most industrialized countries in Europe anyway. But still, there are differences in markets. I assume that I'm not mistaken if I say that the importance of small and particularly family companies is more important in the countries that we designated as being part of the South. How important is the challenges relating to family businesses for interim management in your country, Fabio, Italy?
Yeah, thank you. It's a very interesting question. In Italy, the economy is substantially based on SME, and so we are facing something different from UK and Germany, because the wave arrived just a little bit lower, probably because of the flexibility of the family business company that can change more fast along the way. And so with the leading network survey, we can understand that in family business, the biggest challenge are the transition from all the owner and the guys that are arriving. In Italy, it's a very, very challenge. The transition, the generational transition, sorry, and also the digital transformation. It's a big challenge in this moment in our company. We are very well connected with Germany about the automotive market, but a lot of companies change very fast and so try to find a solution to don't fall in a big financial problem. And so the economy in Italy is substantially flat. And we can see that it's the same for the fee of our interim manager. As Jonathan taught before, in Italy we are essentially flat. So it's the country where is less visible the change. No big change in good way or bad way. We are very stable. And so the change of entrepreneur is probably the most big challenge for next year for us.
Thank you. Well, succession in family companies is also a big issue in Poland, because in the 90s a lot of family businesses developed and grew and have reached quite large proportions today, but at the same time their owners have got old and have to think about the next generation. And there is always very often a problem with the fact that some representatives of this next generation do not necessarily want to take over. How is this in Spain? Because I understand that in Spain also you have a lot of family companies and small and medium companies.
Yes, in fact, you have in the graphic separated the small and medium enterprise with the family businesses. But in Spain, family businesses is 92% of the companies and represent 65% of the GDP. So we do not differ. Within the small and medium company, there are a lot of family businesses. But is there a big difference between small companies and medium and large enterprise? When they went to professionalize the company, the small family businesses want someone from the network, someone who they trust. So they ask for an interim manager. They said before, Jonathan, about the network, the importance of your network to get the assignments. In Spain, for the small family businesses, is the only way. This is why the rate is a bit different, because in the association, we have only professional members. So in small companies, the rates are lower than in medium and large corporations. And normally, the big corporation go to a provider to have several interim managers available. So in Spain, also the succession is a big problem. It's the same as in Poland. A lot of entrepreneurs in the 19th, they started their companies. They have the typical culture of the boss, all the things you must ask to the boss. So in the moment of the succession, it's very difficult for the second generation to be ready to take the power of the company. So there is a big opportunity for interim management in Spain now, because they are seeing that they have to see for another way to preparing the succession. If the second generation is not used to take decision, when it arrives the moment, they are not ready. So in Spain, there are a lot of companies using interim managers and like a mentor for the second generation, maybe temporarily like a CIO, or simply to help the following generation to be prepared for take the company.
Thank you. Well, speaking of family companies, I know that in Germany there is also a large share of family companies in the economy. Now, what would you say is the typical fee structure for interim management? Is there a difference between family companies and other kinds of companies in this respect? Marai?
Well, I'm not quite sure about that. I don't see a structural difference. What I see is that family businesses are much more reluctant in hiring an interim manager. Jonathan described that in a very precise way. Their mindset is completely different. And it's their attitude to make sure that in their pipeline of developing talents, they are able to support their own management structure and not rely on external resources, and they may be a bit afraid of knowledge loss and sharing to the outside. Therefore, it's a bit like Italy, and it's on the other hand different. Most of our small companies are family-owned. And even for the bigger ones, let's say turnover more than 500 million, the part is, about 35 to 40%. But the majority, or at least 50% of our GDP is family-owned businesses. And nearly 60% of the jobs are in family-owned businesses. But only about 20% of the interim management assignments are done in family-owned businesses. And I'd rather say the daily fee depends more on the kind of task, on the role, on the assignment. So is it more restructuring? Is it maybe close to insolvency? Or are you in a really financial crisis? Then daily fees cross over 2,000 euros. That's not normal. That's not the average. Huh? But you can even go through that ceiling. For smaller companies, the managing director normally earns a smaller salary than, let's say, a manager in a large corporation. And those people hiring an interim manager, they do that calculation in their head. Well, 200 days times that fee, this is much more than than what I earn. And of course, this is a wrong calculation. All of you know that. But it's a mismatch in the head.
It's difficult to explain it to them.
You can explain it. You can do a calculation, but it's the feeling. And as I said before, family-owned businesses are a bit difficult. And the succession question, Fabio, this is a theoretical opportunity for interim managers. And I've dealt with that more than 20 years, even with a company of my own father. He asked me to sell his company. And after a couple of years, I told him, you're not going to sell that. You are going to lose your toy. You're, playing around with 250 people that you can tell what they have to do. You don't really want to step down. You're just telling your wife you are going to do that, but you don't want it. And in the end, he didn't do it. So a management buy-in, what would be an ideal role for an interim manager, even without cash. So interchanging your work for sweet equity. And in the end, the old patron isn't stepping down. This is what we see, and therefore we weren't able to increase that share for interim assignments. We tried it for a longer time. In our annual conference, we invited private equities and whatever, but we were not able to increase it because, it's the mindset of the old entrepreneur.
Yes. Do you have a similar fee structure in Italy in such businesses, Fabio?
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. Family-owned business in Italy are small company, SME. So it's different than in Germany, where also family business is big and small. Yeah. So it both. In Italy, essentially, it's just a small company. And so I think the logical is the same. With a little company, you can arrive to a little fee than in the big one. And the contract is the same. It's as Jonathan told, easier work with big company because they are at the same level of thought. So KPI and very the number rules, and with the owner, you have to become before a person that is in a feeling way more important than the number. So in leading, we told usually that the first 100 days are the most important to have a successful assignment, and the fee is average €700 per day, and in big company you can arrive up to 1,800, something like that. So it's something something less than in, but it could be also a big change of the daily rate.
Yeah, I see. Let's change the subject a bit. In Poland, we have, in the interim management area, we have noticed that it's very rare to have an interim assignment in a public sector company or institution. It's practically non-existent, very small extent. I know that in Britain, on the contrary, you probably have been a pioneering country in that area. Can you expand a bit on that, Tony?
I'll try. The situation in the UK is, for at least 20 years, the public sector has used interim managers of various descriptions. It's just been another management tool to do a job. So all around the public sector, it can be local or regional government, it can be central government, pretty much any government department you can think of, you will find interims in it. There is the question of how you define an interim, because a lot of people get called interims, but they're really doing the same sort of thing as people already in the organisation. They just need more of it for a time, whatever that skill set is. Where interims, real interims, are bringing in a skill set which really doesn't exist, particularly in that organisation. The issue for us, I think, is an emotional one, and I think it's a bit easier in the public sector, so it grew quite quickly. And today we have somewhere between 25 and 30% of all assignments are in the public sector. It was a little higher than that at one point, and then governments occasionally say we're saving money, we're going to cut costs. And the easiest thing is, of course, to take out all your consultants and all your interims, that kind of thing. And then about 18 months or 2 years later, they realise that a whole load of work has ground to a halt because they've taken the expertise away, and guess what? Then they re-employ, well, not employ, but they then re-engage people to start the work again. So it does this sort of wave effect more in the public sector.
I know, Francisco, that in Spain you are cooperating with various levels of authorities, and you are going to talk about this after this panel. But do you have instances of interim assignments in the public sector?
In Spain, interim management in the public sector is a small niche, because unlike the private sector, where speed is the primary driver, in the public sector they have administrative law, so it's more complicated to take profit of the power of an interim manager. Normally, in the public sector, they are more focusing on transformation rather than substitution. In these years, with the European funds, they have searched for project manager to take the funds before the deal lands. So more in transformation and the digital area, and also the energy sector maybe. But it's difficult, and sometimes they contracted the interim manager like consultancy or through a company, not directly.
Okay. The same question to you, Marai. Do you have such examples of interim management assignments in public institutions?
Well, the situation is quite similar to, well, yours. Not UK, but to Italy and to Spain. The public sector is accounting only for 1-3% of the interim assignments. And my first impulse would say, well, no. But my own experience was a couple of years ago that I got one of my biggest assignments from the local government, where I had to support the biggest concrete manufacturer of China building a new plant, even close to where I live. So it was a very nice assignment. I could sleep at home, and this is a rare exception. And I supported them for a whole year. But the reason was that the mayor of that city was he was so interested in getting somebody with industry background and not somebody from the local government or from the public sector that I got that assignment. And currently I've got two colleagues, and as well exceptions. One is supporting mid-sized city in Bavaria in digitization of their processes, and they haven't got that knowledge in the public sector. But he had to get normally employed. So he is at the moment, for a couple of years, he is not self-employed. He's not an interim manager as our definition is. And the other one is supporting cultural institutions like museums in their communication. And this is a good example for what it means working for the public sector. As in my case, the daily fee is much, much, much lower than what's normal in the industrial sector. So for me personally, it was a hard decision. On the other hand, they were very interested in me not working more than, maximum 8 hours a day. And I said, in the end, my hourly rate wasn't that bad. Because, when I'm in a normal company, my working day wouldn't finish after 8 hours. But the colleague with the museums, he always complains that his daily rates rather seldomly reach 500 or even 600 euros, what is lower than 50% of our normal daily rate. Therefore, it's not easy, and we have got legal challenges. The government would like us to be employed. So we are, since more than 12 years, in discussions with the government how to change the law and to be able to work as free as we want, being self-employed. But those discussions ongoing, and we have to adapt to that.
How about Italy, Fabio? Do you have instances of such assignments?
Essentially, no.
That's a short answer.
Because the bureaucracy in Italy is a big challenge, very big challenge. And as association, we are in a working table at the Ministry of Justice for the equity compensation for professional. And when we met, every time paper is more than results in the speech. So it's like impossible, or very, very difficult to work with.
It's I'm familiar with this type of problem.
But with a family business, you can speak about result. It's easier.
Exactly. Well, as I said before, Francisco is going to talk after this panel. Is going to have a presentation about a project in regional cooperation for helping companies hire interim managers. I was wondering if there are instances of this type of initiatives in your countries where the regional authorities would be interested in helping local companies develop, either to help them get out of problems that they may encounter, or simply to increase in size and in competitivity. Have you had such instances of cooperating with regional authorities, Fabio?
Not regional, it's news of that weeks. Okay, there is something at the Italian Parliament to give money to the little companies or the SME to help them with the interim management assignment, but the law is ongoing. So we were also in the table of the Parliament to speak about that. I hope they understand, because in Italy we call interim management, we call temporary manager in Italy, so it's something different. The same job but with a different name, and is not well known by politicians. And so we are working to explain better the difference between an interim manager and a consultant, perhaps, because it's not so clear at the political level.
How about Britain, Tony? Because since you have such a great share of interim assignments in the public sector, you obviously have experience in dealing with with authorities of various levels. Does it result in projects aiming at developing local companies?
Short answer is no. The use of interims is treating the whole public sector, the different parts, as a client. It's often done through service providers, because in the public sector there's the idea of competitive tendering and things like that. But it's not universal, even that. So where we have an interim, if you go into 10 Downing Street, the Cabinet Office, you'll find interims in there. Yeah. But they're not done through competitive tendering. I assure you, that's not done that way. You just find them everywhere, and as I say, it ebbs and flows depending upon the political flavour at the time.
Right. How about Germany? Because Germany has an administrative structure with Länder where there are relatively independent regional authorities, a bit similar to Spain, although of course it's not the same. These authorities, in theory at least, should be interested in developing their regional enterprises. Are there such programs in place?
Well, sorry, I got that answer with the last question already. This is one of the rare examples where it happened, but there is not a real program like that, because, we are regarded as a kind of competition to normal employees in the public sector. Therefore, it's not union, but they try to guard and protect their employees by any kind of competition from external managerial resources. Therefore, yes, it can happen, and it happens by rare examples, as stated before, but there is not a kind of a program, and it is a bit undercover.
Well, it's interesting because Francisco, as I said already, will be talking about such a program going on in Spain. And it is interesting to see that in none of our countries, including my own, as of today, we have a similar initiative. But in Poland, we are working on it. So hopefully the situation may change. And maybe at the next conference or at the next opportunity when we meet, I will be able to tell you more about it. But the more interesting will be your presentation because it seems that it is a kind of unique at the European scale, and we are thrilled to learn more about the progress you have made in your program.